Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tachout Garage. Today we're going to continue work on the Magic Boost Bus, getting it ready for the Hot Rod Power Tour coming up in June, which is about a month away for me. So I am in full speed. We're kind of rounding the bend, finishing up the last few things that I had on my major to-do list aside from just, cleaning and, doing fluid changes and whatnot. These are some of the major maintenance items that I've just kind of been putting off, and I'm finally ready to wrap up. So we are going to be pulling the steering wheel today, which is a bit of a daunting task, especially on a newer vehicle like this is a 2014. So I think this will be useful to just kind of show you guys the proper safety techniques and things that you need to take care of before you try to take apart a steering wheel and pull it off. That way, airbag doesn't go boom. You definitely don't want that to happen. So I'm going to show you the steps to actually disable the airbag system, and then you can disconnect the battery cable. And that way it's fully safe. You can pull the airbag out, which is part of a steering wheel removal. And then we can get to what I really am doing this for, is to replace the clock spring, because my buttons don't work on the steering wheel anymore. So that will be a huge convenience factor to get that taken care of. Just be able to run my cruise control. That's a lot of the times I'll be driving down the highway and trying to set cruise, and you have to jam the button and wiggle the wheel, and it's almost like you're making a connection inside just to get cruise control to turn on. And then if you got to adjust it or cancel it, it's a pain in the butt. Same goes with my radio controls on the right hand side. None of those really work either. Even just scrolling through my digital dash gauges, that's every bit of it's just a pain. You don't realize how much you use the little things like steering wheel buttons until they just start malfunctioning or stop working altogether. So we're going to go ahead and do that, and then after that I plan to go ahead and replace the rear step pad on the back. It's a cosmetic thing more than anything. It does have a gash in it as well, so I just went ahead and got a new OEM one. This one is from 2014. I've put tons of treatment on it, and I've made it look shiny and black for a month or two at a time until it rains or until the sun hits it, and then it grays right back out. So I'm finally fed up with it and said, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and replace this thing. So I did get an OEM one. I didn't go aftermarket, so that way it lasts a good long while and keeps its color, and the install should go very easily. So that's the goal, at least. Knock on wood, wherever it may be. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get rolling with the steering column. So let's get going. All right, so like I said, first things first, we're gonna go ahead and pull this steering wheel out. So before we do anything to the actual steering wheel, we need to disable the safety restraint system on this. Ford has a very specific way to do this. You have to pull a fuse from under the dash. It's fuse number 41, and then you have to power the vehicle on, let the airbag light start flashing at you, and wait until it goes solid. And Ford says it takes about 30 to 45 seconds for that to happen. Once that happens, then we'll power the vehicle off, and then we'll go ahead and disconnect the battery. Once the battery's disconnected, we let it sit for at least a minute to discharge the backup battery that's powering the SRS system. And then after that, we'll be safe to go ahead and proceed forward in actually removing the steering wheel, and specifically removing that airbag. So we'll go ahead and get rocking. First things first, I got to crawl under this dash and contort and get fuse number 41 out. And it gets a lot harder the older you get, let me tell you. I used to be able to live under these dashes. I used to do a lot of audio installs. I was an old school Best Buy installer and Circuit City installer for audio systems, and it was nothing to live under a dash. But nowadays, it's nowhere near as easy as it once was. And you got 40 things poking you. That's always fun too. All right. Pull out my handy dandy reference here. Got big one, 40. All right. So it's a 7.5 amp fuse. Oh, my bad. There we go. And we're gonna go ahead and grab it, yank it. Cool. All right. Step one done. Painfully, but done. Now, we'll power it on. It should bark at us. The bus makes a lot of noises when it powers on. Lots of noises. There we go. I double tapped, but it didn't like the double tap. All right, I have an airbag light. Let's see if it comes. There we go. Okay, it's angry at me.
911 assist is not operational. Please visit your dealer for service.
Oh yeah, this thing's all sorts of angry at me right now. But the airbag light is on, so that's half the battle. We're just gonna let it sit here, I guess. It is not blinking at me. It did blink for a moment and that was it. And it's interesting, when the SRS is disabled, it disables advanced track, which is kind of like, you know, Ford's traction control for these models. So that is very interesting that it also disabled that. But we do have a successful airbag light. So we'll let this sit and we'll be right back. All right, that should be my 30 seconds. All right, so our 30 seconds are up. Now I'll go ahead and disconnect the battery real quick. All right, negative cable is disconnected. So now we wait yet another full minute. All right, so we'll wait a full minute. I just checked my timer. We'll wait a minute and then I'll be back. All right, so our minute has passed. Actually a little bit past a minute. So one of the things you need, and I did a test run just because I didn't have a freaking clue. You need to have a 3mm Allen wrench, and you got to have a decently long one. So, I'll show you guys over here. I have one of these, a keyed Allen wrench. Now, the reason you need it so long, and Ford specifies this very, very intently, is you need to have 55mm of engagement. So I just broke out the caliper and I roughly measured 55mm and marked it off with some blue tape. I get it now that I've taken it apart. I understand why it has to be 55, so you have any hope of knowing where the heck you're even pointing, because you're pretty blind. So there is a hole that is sitting under the paddle shifter right here, and there's a hole under the paddle shifter right here. So you basically shove your 3mm in, and I also figured out that there's a metal backer panel, and you run right up against it, so you're pushing the Allen wrench towards the front of the vehicle to pivot the end of it towards yourself. And basically you're getting in there, and it takes a couple times, but what you're reaching for is like a small thin metal bar. And basically you poke it until you can pull that side of the airbag loose. So this side is loose. Now I'm going to go over here and do the same thing. Get in my hole. Get down to my 55mm. Push towards the vehicle. And push in. And there we go. So that took me, admittedly, like a solid 5 to 6 minutes of playing with it before I got on with you guys. For somebody who doesn't know how to do it, that was a pain. I knew there was something you had to release, but I thought there'd be some tabs. No, there's no tabs, and I'll show you what it is here in a second. So now we've got our airbag loose. We need to pop our clips up and out. There's 2 little push tabs on either side. You got a white one, you got a black one, or a gray one and a black one. There's our airbag. She is out. She is good. So we will sit that off to the side. Never face an airbag towards you. Always hold it off. And there's spikes on the back of the airbag, because of course there's spikes on something that, you know, can horribly maim you. So just handle with care. Even if you've done the full discharge procedure, even if you've had the battery disconnected for a long time, like I said, I pushed well into the 10-minute mark overall. Please handle those like they're a live bomb, because they're kind of are. And You just don't want anything bad to happen. So I'm gonna give you guys a visual of what it is I'm talking about. So here is your steering wheel. Here's what she looks like, okay? I'm gonna show you what the Allen wrench is doing to be able to release this. So the airbag goes there and there. The two spikes, the death spikes on the back of the airbag, go in that area, and they clip in into that hole, and you can see that little bar right there. So what you're doing is you're going into this hole that is in the cover underneath the paddle shifter. You come into that hole, and then you can kind of see it here. Let me give you some light. You can see it. You can see my blue tape already sticking through. So basically you are aiming for that bar that is sticking right behind there. So you can see the bar right there, and you can see you push up against this metal plate that the bar is behind, and then you can move it. And it takes a surprising amount of force to move that. So, but I mean, I was in there just wiggling all over the place, jumping past, and you can see you can slip right past it and go right towards the center of the steering wheel. It's just, yeah, that's an interesting design. But the biggest thing to know is push the end in your hand towards the front of the vehicle to pivot the tip towards you, and that'll put you right up against the back of this metal plate, and it'll get you lined up to actually hit this spring clip. That's an interesting design, to say the least, by Ford. So, all right, well, there's our guts. That's step number one. Step number two is we got to get back here behind, and we got to get to this. So we are putting a brand spanking new unit in, and this is Ford OEM, because I'm not going to trust any kind of airbag control with anything other than an OEM part, because yeah, death and all that stuff. So yeah, you got to make sure you do a proper, careful procedure when you're doing this. And for goodness sakes, whatever you do, don't pull this pull tab out. This D-ring right here, it looks so tempting to yank out. Don't pull it out until you have this unit completely installed. That is holding the spring in place. And if you pop that out, this spring is ruined, basically. You've got to try to realign it, and at that point in the ball game, yeah, you're not in a good place. So next up, we need to get what looks to be like a very large Torx. I'm going to get that and grab my impact and potentially my 1/2-inch ratchet if my impact doesn't take care of it. And we'll go ahead and get that backed out, and then see where we go from there. All right, so we are ready to try to crack this bad boy loose. This is a T50. Yeah, let's see. Oh, with ease. Okay, wow. Okay, that popped out shockingly easily. Okay, next thing is we want to pull this harness out, because that's all of our controls for our steering wheel controls. And then this will stay behind as the steering wheel comes out. So we'll go ahead and try to give it a yank and see if it cooperates going by hand or if we're gonna have to fight with it. Okay, so that is probably the easiest steering wheel removal I have ever done in my entire life. She's out. Wow. Wow, that was ridiculously simple. That was crazy simple, actually. All right, here we go. Steering wheel is off. Next thing we got to do, we do have to pull the shrouds, and I do have to pull this lower kick panel in order to get to the clock spring. More importantly, to pull the shrouds off, this kick panel's got to go. So in the flex specifically, this is a 7mm. And I know this from experience because I've dropped that kick panel out many a times as I was doing random installations. There are 3 bolts you got to get. And sometimes they're pain. And sometimes you need an extension or a wobble. I'm cheating it. I have somewhat of an extension, so we're going for it. That's one. There's one under the hood pop handle. That's two. And then one more towards the far right where your right knee would be. Pretty close to the accelerator, but I would say in between the accelerator and brake pedal. And three. Okay. Good, good. So you have to kind of pull the hood pop at the same time and yank straight down. Clip, clip, clip. So not the end of the world. And then just finagling it out of the way. I have a cabin temperature sensor, so I've got a disconnect to go right there. And then I've got a switch for goodies. So we'll just kind of leave it all connected and sit it out of the way. Now we have full access to our steering column shroud. And thank you, Ford. They made that a 7mm. Looks like there's one deep up under here. Use the force. There we go. That's two. That one's going to be really fun to get back in. And then number three, right there. Theoretically, that should be it. Yep. 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 Cool. All right. Lower shroud is off. Now we just got to yank our upper shroud. And that is simple enough. Just pick it up and pivot it out of the way. It's got a leather piece that's attached to the actual gauge cluster. So it pivots up and out of the way just fine. So we are good there. Looks like we have some baby Torx bits to pull out, and that'll be our clock spring. So that was super easy access, way easier than I expected, to be honest. So let's go ahead and grab us a Torx. It's too big. One of these two. I always grab extras. That way I don't have to make a second trip. My first guess, incorrect. That's why I grab an extra. Second guess, spot on. There we go. One, two, three Torx screws. There is a harness right here, so pop that. Are we attached anywhere else? Okay, and then there is a pinned connector right there. Let's see if I can get real close. So there's your pin connector, and that actually goes into the column. So there's a circuit board that's sitting right there. So that's it. That's clock spring removed. This is way easier of a job than I thought it would be, for sure. So there we go. There's our fantastically disassembled setup. And that's where the pins go, right there. So now that we've got that all taken care of, let's reverse the process. Get this bad boy done. All right, get our new one. It does have the same connector. Let's just compare. Relatively the same. This one has a little bit more protection on it, which is kind of cool. So this must be an updated version. Everything else looks to match. That is something I was going to mention, is always double check. Double check your matches. So B5T 14A664-CA. So this is an updated version of this guy. So new and improved from Ford. Maybe it'll last longer. Pins match. Plug shape matches. Down there matches. Looks like our holes match up. And it looks like our plug matches, and our airbag connectors are the same. So, with all that verified, I think we're good to go. Now we'll go ahead and jump in and put this guy in the way I found the last one. Definitely want to be careful pushing in on that connector. Don't want to force anything at this point in the ball game. You certainly don't want anything to not work, because that would just suck. So it looks like all my holes are lined up nicely. I think we're good. Go ahead and put our 3 little baby bolts back in. Or screws. We'll call them screws. Don't really qualify as a bolt. 1. 2. Interesting. Did this one have 3 or 4? So it went like this. Huh. So that's interesting as well. The design is updated with a 4th hole. I didn't have a 4th hole. I only had 3. That's interesting and somewhat worrisome. And what's very interesting is this has a 4th hole and tab on the actual clock spring. And the column does have a hole behind it for a screw to go in it. So I'm going to pop one of these screws out. I'm going to look in my magic drawer of spare hardware and see if I have something that might match this thread pitch real quick. So let me come right back. All right, so I found a screw that'll work. Coarse threaded Phillips head, so it'll be a little bit different, but the head size is correct. The depth matches all the other ones, and there's plenty of room on this extra tab to where we can send it right in. So I kind of like that because it just makes it that much more secure, and there's not as much wobbling around, so there's less play. And this thing is plastic, so play is bad for plastic. So I like that. Okay, we got 4 in. She is solid as can be now. I like it. So now I guess we just do reassembly. Quick and easy. I like quick and easy on this one. Okay, cool. So sit our shroud back down. You didn't see that. I keep my car perfectly clean. I don't know. You guys didn't see anything. Don't forget that harness, because if you put this back together before you hook up that harness, you're going to have a bad day, because then you got to take everything back apart. Because why? Because it's awesome. All right, so get this in here. Try to line it up. Leave this upper up because there's actually a hook on the back sides of each of these, and so this upper shroud hooks in and then clips down, which is interesting that Ford failed to mention that in the instructions prior. So there's that. Okay, that looks to be good. Let's go ahead and put our 7mm back in from whence they came. Okay. There she goes. Nice and easy. I have pressure sensitive trigger on this, so I'm just barely pulling it down. So when you hear it clicking, I'm not going full torque and full ugga-dugga on it. Good, snug. All right, now for the fun one. Remember, there's only 3 on this. Get it in the hole. Got it. Okay, cool. So that's done. Now we can go ahead and snap our upper shroud in. Like I said, there are 2 hooks that you can hook this shroud into and kind of pull it down over. Make sure it's there. Push it back as you're pulling down. and then line it up and snap it down. All right, that's back on and good to go. Now we can go ahead and put our lower kick panel back up. We're just doing exact reverse order, try not to skip any steps and go out of order, because that's how you forget things and lose things. So, tuck wiring in. Don't forget your cabin air sensor if you've got one, which I do. Slip this underneath the hood install. Line up your tabs, and there's lots of aligners to go ahead and get this in place, so you shouldn't misfire. Clip the top in, and then put your 3.7mm back in from underneath. I'll start this by hand first. Helps to hold the kick panel up. Get the bolts started by finger. Otherwise, you will be fighting non-stop trying to get it in if you're just using the drill and nothing else. All right, 1, 2. Get number 3 started. There we go. And send it. 1, 2, 3. All right, kick panel's in. Now we're going to be to the steering wheel, but I am going to use something you guys do not see me use very often. Make sure I grab the right size one. That's not it. That is. Yeah, that's how not often I use a torque wrench. I had to blow the dust off of it. But for this particular case, I think we're going to use a torque wrench. So it's interesting. This had what looks to be green Loctite on it. I don't know what level green is, but since it had some green Loctite on it, I'm going to do a couple drops of blue. It didn't have a ton on it, just a small amount. So I'm going to kind of match that. Just do a small amount of blue Loctite, leave the green on it. So that way it's got some friction. We're going to turn the Ugga Dugga machine all the way down to number 1. And go ahead and do our steering wheel. Now notice, throughout all of this, I have not pulled this pin. The directions clearly state, do not pull that pin until you have the steering wheel installed. And the reason is these 2 yellow bumpers right here need to go into the back of the steering wheel, into the holes. That will hold the clock spring in place and keep it from just spinning wildly and breaking, essentially. So make sure you don't pull that pin till you are absolutely ready. And the other thing was, I had my steering wheel centered when I started all of this, and this is just a hexagon pattern inside here. It's not splined, it's a hex pattern. So all you have to do is get that lined up, and if you're facing up and down just how you had it, life should be good. All right, so it sits, I mean, like worryingly loosely on there without the bolt. I guess the bolt does all the work. So we'll go ahead and put this guy in, get it started by hand, and then, like I said, number 1 on this guy. Okay, do that. And then torque specs for this guy were 47 foot-pounds. So go ahead and get our 47, 30, 40. All right. Lock her down. Hold the steering wheel with your knee to get your torque. Wow. Oh God. Don't break. I guess I can pull that now, because otherwise you're going to break it. Because clock spring is locked in. So once the steering wheel is on and you got the bolt in, go ahead and pull that pin, I guess, because while you're torquing, it's trying to turn on you. Can I lock it? I can't lock it. Wow. There it goes. Holy cow. That would be easier with two people. That would be way easier with two people. All right, so she's tight, solid, all the wiggles gone. So obviously that did the trick. So doing it one person, I used my chest, used my manly powers to go ahead and get this in there, hold it up against the back of the torque wrench with my chest, which now hurts, to keep inward force. Use one hand to grip the steering wheel and the other hand to go ahead and torque it down the rest of the way to get that click. So now we have clicked, so we are good. Next up, you want to get your harness plugged back in. So that should be good. We are tight, we're good. Last step is go ahead and put our airbag back in. And this disassembly is done. But there's still another step after this, because now we got to reset the airbag system, which is super important. All right, as I said before, make sure you match up gray to gray and black to black for your connectors. And those only go in one way, so hard to screw up. Go ahead and line up your death spikes and give it a push. And that's it. So she's installed. That was probably the easiest rip and replace steering wheel job I've ever done. I've thought about wanting to get a new steering wheel for this, maybe get something custom. Now that I know how easy the job is, thinking it's a good possibility, potentially a reality. So, all right, next up, we have to go through a very specific Ford procedure to reactivate and re-energize the SRS system. So I will walk you guys through all of that. Let me do a little bit quick cleanup here, and then we'll get going on it. All right, so next up is following the procedure to reinstall and reactivate or re-energize. What's it say? This is the repowering of the supplemental restraint system from Ford directly. So I have a push button start with intelligent access, which you guys saw me replace the panel on, and I've got proximity and all that stuff. So I have very specific directions to follow for this model. Your mileage may vary if you have a key start instead of a push to start. So first thing I need to do is reinstall the 7.5 amp fuse in number 41 slot, which means I have to contort myself again. And go ahead and pop that guy in there. Looks good. Give it an extra push just to be sure. There it goes, it's set. Okay. 7.5 amp fuse is installed. So we're good there. Now, this is where the fun really begins. Next up, I have to remove the run start relay from the battery junction box. So, it means I gotta go under the hood and get to the main fuse box. So let's go for a ride. All right, so the directions specifically say, remove the run start relay from the battery junction box, which is the one closest to the battery. It's a relay. And it's really hard to grip because it has no ridges, all smooth sides. Come on. Got it. Okay. Relay out. And just in case you're curious, there's the numbers on the relay. Okay. I don't know if that focused or not. Now, here's where it gets super funky. So we pulled that relay. Now it wants a 30 amp fused jumper wire put in place of the relay. I had to make a jumper wire. Stuck a 30 amp fuse in it. Thankfully I had something. I checked the size of the spades on the relay. So it's going to use the 2 big spades. So I matched up the sizes of the spades so we can plug it right in. So now we're going to go ahead and jump and plug in that one and that one. So we are essentially jumping the 2 big terminals of the starting circuit, which is really, really bizarre. But I mean, at least it's fused, so there is that. All right, our terminals are jumped. Next up, connect the battery ground cable and then wait 30 seconds to remove the fused jumper wire from the BJB, which is the battery junction box. All right, so let's make sparks. We got sparks. Go ahead, cinch down our cable. Okay, we're good. And now we wait 30 seconds. All right, that's our 30 seconds. Now it says remove the jumper wire, which is super sketch, but okay. We're removed. I heard something turn off, so okay. And then it says go ahead and put the relay back in. So let's go ahead and reinstall our relay. It's back in. And then put the cover back on and we're done. This is funky, to say the least. What a strange install. All right, now it says with the ignition off, wait 10 seconds, then turn the ignition on and monitor the airbag warning indicator with the airbag modules installed. The airbag warning indicator illuminates continuously for approximately 6 seconds and then turns off. So let's bring you back up to me. Hello. All right, so let's see if this will actually work. Okay, we are in the vehicle. It has definitely been 10 seconds. So let's go ahead and stab one. Everything got reset, so everything's going to be angry at me right now. And let's go 2 and hope the airbag doesn't go off. Okay, we're good. Airbag indicator turned off. Our traction control error went away, so that's all good. I have a flashing check engine light because I don't have rear O2s. Not to mention, it does say that I need to go in to the control modules and clear all faults. So it probably triggered a fault at the beginning, but it looks like we're good. So let me go ahead and grab my handy dandy tablet and we'll go ahead and clear the faults. And theoretically, we should be done. Diagnosis, let's just do an auto scan. We'll scan all the units. I know the usual codes I have, but we'll just double check everything. All right, well, realistically, we're just gonna go ahead and we'll quick erase everything because that's just a lot and you gotta go through one by one and well, that's not worth it. So we'll quick erase and then see if stuff comes back. How about that? All right, wow, I had quite a bit. Life and times of driving a modified vehicle. And sometimes you just get old stuff that just hangs out in there for no good reason. And this is clearing and passing a lot. Yep. Clear, 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 clear. So we are good to go. Everything's good. Everything passed. We're good. All right, go ahead and turn her off. And that is that. All right, guys, that does it for the steering wheel removal. That was a very, very easy process. It was so much easier than I had honestly anticipated it to be. I'm gonna go ahead and test out my buttons. I guess I probably should have done that. Let's go ahead and do it, actually. While we're here, crank everything up. Let's go see. Much more responsive, so we are good. Turn my tablet off. I use this tablet for gauges, by the way. Yeah, I think we're good. All right, so that wraps up the airbag, steering wheel, clock spring removal and install, and then the whole procedure to properly disable your SRS system and then properly re-enable it, specifically on this model with a push button start. So that covers Ford Flex. That should also cover the Taurus SHO and the Lincoln MKS and I think MKT. Don't hold me to that. Definitely the Taurus SHO. And it probably is extremely similar to the 11 through 19 Ford Explorer as well. They all share a ton of the same parts. They share most of the same chassis, the engine, all of that. So yeah, hopefully this is applicable to a lot of people, and hopefully it's useful. Hopefully, you know, you learn something and maybe you'll be a little bit less afraid. Avoid the frustration of trying to get the airbag popped out by doing that trick I said, by pushing the Allen key forward towards you to get it to actually hit the release bar, and then you got the visual of where the release bar is. So all in all, this really wasn't that terrible of a project. One of the things I would suggest is, if you do have push button start and you are attacking this, order a bunch of these off of Amazon. This is just an inline fuse holder that comes with a loop of wire, and I made a jumper out of it to go ahead and do the recharge procedure. So, all right, this project is wrapped up. We'll move on to the next one. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on this. This thing is not held in by a whole heck of a lot. So I've got the new piece here. Like I said, it is Ford OEM, so I went with the good stuff instead of cheap plastic. Hopefully it, you know, survives the test of time. That's the part number for you. Go ahead and crack this open so we have a good idea. And this is something you should always try to do, is if you're replacing a part and you already have the new part, pull it out so you can see how it's attached and see if there's anything special about it. So for this guy, we've got clips, we got alignment pins, lots more clips, another alignment pin, lots more clips, another alignment pin, and some clips. And that's it. And the design on these clips, it's really just kind of friction fit. It's not a huge lip or anything like that. So I'm really hoping just a little bit of brute force going along this back edge, because if you see, this is the edge that goes towards the interior this way. So I'm hoping I can just pop these up. I know where my pins are, so I mean, really it doesn't matter if I break it, I suppose. But we're gonna try to pop it off. I don't think it's gonna fight me, knock on wood. I'm just gonna be very methodical about it. I'm gonna start at the center and work my way out and see if it makes a difference. Tools for today, we're gonna use plastic pry tools. So try not to mar up the paint that's on here. This is dirty, so I'm probably gonna do a deep clean once I can get this piece off. And just, there's a lot of room for dust and dirt and pollen and everything else to get wedged under there over the years. So it does make a difference. So having this out will definitely give me an opportunity to try and correct that. All right, so wedge up in the middle. Hey, tell me this is gonna cooperate. That'll be kind of amazing. And I'm just gonna work my way along, use my hook tools here, and utilize the hook. Yeah, oh gosh. All right, so now we know, once again, Ford convoluted the instructions in the manual, on the shop manual, I should say, on how to get this thing out, because they want you to pull the whole rear bumper to do this job, and that just didn't seem feasible to me. Well, now I know you don't have to. Boy, oh boy. This is gonna make life so much better. There it goes. And mind you, these are just plastic pry tools, not anything metal, not anything that's gonna mar anything, and not anything that's like, you know, super strong. These are good thick ones though, so it does help. Good old Harbor Freight special, but they have lasted me quite a long time, so if it works, is it really stupid? No. Sometimes you can get away with budget tools. Something like this, plastic, if I break it, I'll just go buy some more. Okay, so now that I got that done, I wonder if I can just up and pull. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Yep. Try not to destroy it in the process here. Get as close to where the connectors are as possible. Ha! And we're done. Could you imagine somebody if they just followed the directions? You can see how dirty that is. But I could have totally popped this off and reused it if I really needed to. Boy, that is good to know for future reference for any Flex owners. If you need to pull this off because you want to clean it or you want to get it painted maybe, anything like that, pry tools in a couple minutes and boom, you're good. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to take a minute and clean this nasty mess. This is 145,000 miles worth of sand, dirt, dust, pollen, and everything in between. I'm gonna take this opportunity, wipe this all down. I'm gonna vacuum it first, try not to scratch the paint, get it all cleaned up, and then we'll come back to install the new piece. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that very satisfying quick sequence of getting this clean. This is 150% better. Went ahead and vacuumed it off and then hit it with some good, I love this stuff. No, I'm not sponsored, but Tough Stuff all-purpose foam cleaner. Does a great job, especially when there's a lot of debris and stuff, because that foam kind of encapsulates it. And really does just a great job on general cleaning. Obviously you want to do something after you use that, but using that as your first step for a deep degreasing job or a really dirty job makes all the difference in the world. That is nasty. That is so nasty. So that needed done desperately. Like I said, that's 145,000 miles worth of dust, dirt, and grime, and sand, and pollen, and everything else in between. So huge difference. So I guess all we got left to do is put the step pad back on. This should be as simple as lining it up and pushing it down. So let's just go ahead and do it. We'll get right to it. Line it up. Oh yeah, I mean it wants to fall into place basically. Let's see. Push it down. Just go along. That's it. Feels tight. I don't feel any bumpies. Nothing looks out of alignment. It's good and even along the bottom here. Oh, if only all cosmetic mods were this simple. This was stupid easy. Fantastic. I'm kind of mad I waited this long to do it, to be honest, because holy crap, what a difference. So that does it for this mod. I might throw some slick on it and just, you know, put some UV protection on it now to be proactive. I bought this when it had, you know, 33,000 miles on it. So it already had a little bit of, you know, sun exposure and all that and some graying out. And like I said, for the last 100,000+ miles, I've just slapped everything I could on it and it only stay, you know, black for so long. Let me give you a visual just to show the dramatic difference. Look at the difference in color. I mean, just crazy. And this is just, it's multicolored, it's streaky, it's beat up, and now new hotness, all uniform one color, not beat up. I am ecstatic. This is such a simple but so worth it change. So, all right, that's wrapped up. I need to rearrange the flex here, and we'll probably just go ahead and pull it in frontwise so I can get it lifted up in the air. And we're gonna swap out the lug nuts, do those new spike lug nuts I was talking about. All right, so we're on to the last planned mod and or maintenance item, more so mod, that I have planned for the Flex before the Power Tour. This is kind of the last part that I think I'm gonna put on it. Like I said, everything else will be maintenance from there on out, as far as just fluids and cleaning and shining it up and getting it ready for 2,000 miles of driving and showing off and racing and awesomeness. So we're going to change out the lug nuts on this. So when I got the tires changed out on it, I went ahead and put my crappy backup lug nuts on there, took my steel spikes off, just make it easier on the tire shop guys to be able to pull the wheels off and do the alignment and all that stuff without having huge spike lug nuts in the way. For the future, this will actually be a little bit easier. So let's see, I got a package. And in this package came from company True Spike, which is, it says a SEMA Awards winner. And so these came highly recommended, basically, from the car community. And they are a two-piece system. First piece is a steel lug nut, and it's got the right kind of seat for my application. And what's really interesting is that little addition right there. So I've had screw-on spikes before, but they've always like screwed into the interior of the lug nut. This is an interesting design because it has the thread built into it and it pokes outwards, which is very different. They probably had their reasoning for doing so, but the thing I like about this is steel, so I still have my security as far as not having to worry about anything backing off. I've heard horror stories about aluminum lug nuts and the issues that they can end up having. So you get the peace of mind of steel, not to mention if these do end up kind of nicking up or rusting because they're probably just powder coated or painted, I really don't have to worry because they're going to kind of be hidden for the most part inside the cavity of the wheel. The important part and the pretty part is the spike. Let's see if I can find, goodness, lots and lots and lots and lots of parts. Spikes, haha, all right. That's what I was looking for. Here's the completed thing. So I love this spike, and the red matches the red of the boost bus almost spot on. I didn't want to go with full red spikes because it clashed with my wheels more than anything. So going with a spike like this, I get the best of both worlds. You get that black, and especially from far away, the red kind of disappears. It's just a touch and you get more of just the black. But then when you get up close to it, you just get that, cool look. And I love it. And the tips are very sharp. They're sharper than the last spikes I had, but I really like them. These are super lightweight aluminum, and if you can tell by the finish, see if I can hide me. There we go. So if you can tell by the finish, very shiny, and this is anodized aluminum, which means it should not chip and flake and look like crap after so long. So I'm hoping I get some longevity out of these guys. Let me pull one out so you guys can see just what the spike itself looks like. So just a cap, basically, and it's got a threaded insert inside, and that just threads right on. So these just look and feel super, super high quality. I'm very impressed with the whole package. They sent everything I need to do all four corners. They just look great. So I guess the last thing to do, I mean, they're lug nuts. I can't talk to you guys that much about lug nuts. This was going to be a quick anyhow. I'm just going to do one wheel. I won't bore you with doing all four corners, but we'll go ahead and swap it out, do that in a jiffy, and just kind of do a quick time lapse on it just to show you guys the quick dirty process of getting everything swapped out. And then I'll show you the final result, and that'll kind of be the end of it. That guy asked how much torque you want, and he decided all of it. All right, so cool. bring you guys in so you can kind of see finished product. So there we go. I love it. They look fantastic. Get you the side profile. Yes, sir. I'm a fan. Let's see, it's focusing on the tire. Ah, there we go. Looky there. I like it. Like I said, the color is just enough for me to make me a happy camper. Very cool. Now I really got to clean my wheel to make it look as good as my brand new lugs. So we'll probably be doing that. I need to scrub the rubber on the new tires, and then I always put some dressing on it just to keep them healthy. I don't go crazy dripping wet, but definitely want to dress them. So guess I'm going to go ahead and do that. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and swap out the rest of the lugs. I'll get everything torqued down, and that is another one done. All right, guys, that does it for the final episode of getting the Boost Bus ready for the Hot Rod Power Tour. I did a ton of maintenance on this thing, a ton of things that I've been putting off for quite a while. I'm kind of glad that I decided to go ahead and get the push from making this YouTube channel to go ahead and get some much needed maintenance done. I did invest a little bit of money into it, but at this point in the ballgame, it's worth putting money into to keep it on the road. Far too often people just trade in vehicles or want to upgrade to the newest when he can make something better. So that's kind of what I'm doing with this and keeping her alive. And I love the car. Like I said, the only thing I would ever do, I might swap it out for a 2019 if I can find the exact same color, exact same specs and everything, maybe with a couple upgrades. But outside of that, I'm married to this one. I've got plenty of other ones that I have fun with, but this one was the first real love that I've had the longest out of probably the 40 plus vehicles I've owned in my lifetime, and that says a lot. So with that, we're going to wrap up this series. We've got new stuff coming. The next thing that'll be going under the knife will be my 2001 F-150 SVT Lightning. That one's got a lot of maintenance that needs done on it. 80,000 mile, or I think it's like 86,000 mile truck that I'm pretty sure is basically original top end. It's never been taken apart. The intercooler needs cleaned on it. The turkey pan mod needs done where it, gathers and collects oil and drains it out. So there's different mods we can do for that. I'm probably going to try to go ahead and do some upgrades at the same time, maybe even send the blower out to get it ported and polished. We'll see how deep we get. I guess we'll know once we get the top end apart. It's a very involved process, so it's definitely going to be probably a multi-parter to go ahead and work on that one. I've already got all the parts sitting on the shelf. They've actually been sitting for a while. Yet another one that I've been putting off for a good bit. I'm looking at doing a fuel upgrade on that as well. Maybe do like a couple dual Walboro 255 pumps in the tank. And while I'm at it, I will address there is a known flaw in the tank is the Y pipe, because that comes with 2 pumps from the factory and it shares a plastic Y pipe, and that thing is notorious for age cracking, getting brittle, and then you lose a lot of fuel pressure. So if you go under wide open throttle, you end up with a lean condition and engine go boom, and we don't want to go boom. So I definitely want to do all that. Like I said, I think I'll go the Walboro 255s. I'm not going crazy power on the truck, but if I can make good, reliable power and not have to worry about going wide open throttle and, really sending it on the supercharger, I'm totally going to do that. At the same time, we'll probably do a pulley upgrade on it. That truck is almost bone stock. It's got an intake, a basic tune, and a Bassani exhaust on it. And that's essentially it for performance. So it's got lots of potential. I don't want to go crazy, but more power, because more power. So be looking forward to that. That'll be coming up soon. In the meantime, that'll do it for me. This is Tachout Garage. I'm Brent. I hope you guys enjoyed this series, and until the next time, be good, be kind. Till next time.